I recently pulled up on Spotify one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs, a song I've been listening to for 30 years, going back to my days growing up listening to oldies stations, as I've said on other videos. KFRC-FM in San Francisco, when they converted to an oldies format in the spring of 1991, I was all over that. I loved that stuff. And that's the music I grew up listening to, all right? And this song, Under My Thumb, by the Rolling Stones, was frequently played. In that era, no one thought twice about that, I guess. This was 32 years ago. Different world, man, all right? And when I pulled it up on Spotify, I was struck, I was astonished by how many covers this song has generated over the years, including to this day, in this moment, here in 2023, by the way. There's a big-name artist who just about 8 months ago, as we'll talk about, released a cover of this song. And the question for me is why? What is it about this song, with its profoundly troubling and controversial legacy, that resonates with artists? Why are so many artists, plenty of them women, by the way, which is a remarkable fact for reasons we'll explore in a bit, feel drawn to this song? Why? What is it that the song is speaking to? Is it giving a voice to something that makes people feel heard? Is it even giving people an opportunity, particularly women listeners and women artists, to feel liberated, to reclaim power that they feel has been taken from them? That might sound ironic given the content of the song. That might sound backward. But I think there might be more than meets the eye to the song and its appeal to so many artists. Again, in particular, women artists, okay? It's very interesting to me that so many women artists have felt drawn to this song. And again, the artist who put out a cover of the song this year, it's a female artist, and plenty of people listen to this, showing up at this YouTube channel will know who it is when I mention it, all right? So, Under My Thumb, if you're not familiar with it, it's okay. That's why you're here, right? Let's talk about the music that paved the way for the music that perhaps you listen to. This song came out on a landmark Rolling Stones album called Aftermath in 1966. Landmark for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this was the first Rolling Stones album comprising all original material. There were no blues covers here. It was the Stones going to work, writing their own songs together, and coming up with an album's worth of original material. That was a big deal for this increasingly big band at the time. Okay, so it's a really important artifact for that reason. But secondly, Aftermath also had Paint It Black on there. It kicks off with Paint It Black. That was a #1 hit for the Stones. That's a signature Stones classic. Okay, so kicks off with that huge song. And by the way, you've perhaps watched my video about the recently put out Brian Jones documentary. Brian Jones, one of the most talented multi-instrumentalists in the history of rock and roll, makes that song with his sitar playing. In fact, a music journalist that I love, Stephen Thomas Erlewine, called it the best use of sitar on a rock record. Brian Jones playing sitar on that amazing song, Paint It Black. Okay, but Brian Jones also makes this song, Under My Thumb, playing, of all things, the marimba on Under My Thumb, which is the melody that undergirds this song. It's not what it is without that. I say this a lot about the contributions that Brian Jones makes to Stones songs, adding these exotic flourishes that the Stones never would have contemplated without Brian Jones's involvement. That flute you hear on Ruby Tuesday. Things like that were all about Brian Jones. The Stones didn't have that without him. And it's one of the tragic aspects of Brian's legacy. He was such a talented player, elevating the sophistication of this rock band in ways that would not have been possible without him. And he does it on Under My Thumb. Guys, any cover, when the Stones play it live, they're not playing marimba, but Keith is knocking out that marimba riff on guitar. They have Brian Jones to thank for that signature riff, okay? Brian Jones. Again and again, I will say it. He made this song and so many others from the earliest years of the Rolling Stones story. Brian Jones making song after song. But here's the thing. Under My Thumb was the song the Stones were playing at the Altamont Free concert in 1969, when Meredith Hunter is stabbed and beaten to death by Hell's Angel Alan Parsons. So this song has some weighty, dark legacy to it. If you're unfamiliar with that episode at the Altamont Free concert, look it up. I'll link to some stories about it in the description. It is one of the darkest episodes in the history of rock and roll. Ugly, terrible moment. And Alan Parsons gets off. I mean, it was terrible. He's acquitted. It's terrible. And really shook Mick Jagger, really shook the Rolling Stones. Okay? But I called this song profoundly troubling and controversial. I mean, inarguably, it has been. That's its legacy. Let's take a look at the lyrics, shall we? And come to understanding of why Under My Thumb, it hits people that way. Okay? Under my thumb. Under my thumb, the girl who once had me down. Under my thumb, the girl who once pushed me around. It's down to me, the difference in the clothes she wears. Down to me, the change has come. She's under my thumb. And ain't it the truth, babe? Under my thumb, it's a squirming dog who's just had her day. Under my thumb, a girl who has just changed her ways. It's down to me. Yes, it is. The way she does just what she's told. Down to me. The change has come. She's under my thumb. Say it's all right. Under my thumb is a Siamese cat of a girl. Under my thumb, she's the sweetest pet in the world. It's down to me, the way she talks when she's spoken to. Down to me, the change has come. She's under my thumb. Take it easy, babe, yeah. It's down to me, oh yeah, the way she talks when she's spoken to. Down to me, the change has come. She's under my thumb, yeah, it feels all right. Under my thumb, her eyes are just kept to herself. Under my thumb, well, I can still look at someone else. It's down to me. Oh, that's what I said. The way she talks when she's spoken to. Down to me. The change has come. She's under my thumb. Say it's all right. Say it's all. Say it's all. Take it easy, babe. Take it easy, babe. Feels all right. Take it. Take it easy, babe. Okay? Need I say more about the troubling legacy that arose in the wake of this song's release in 1966? Okay? And you contrast that with songs that the Beatles were putting out about love, right? I want to hold your hand. Please let me hold your hand. Begging to do something as genteel as merely hold your daughter's hand. Meanwhile, the Stones come to write songs in the voice of the devil. Sympathy for the devil. They come to release songs by their satanic majesty's request, as they did in 1967. Under My Thumb depicts the kind of guy that your daughter was going to get involved with in Rolling Stones world, and it was a more menacing, more threatening, darker world for her. Okay? This was a key contrast between the Stones and the Beatles. You think about so many other Beatles songs that, as innovative as the Beatles were, lyrically, so many of the Beatles' more love-leaning songs were rather straightforwardly sentimental. I mean, you think of And I Love Her, Love Me Do 8 Days a Week, I love her, right? Michelle, My Belle, Girl, Something in the Way She Moves. I mean, I wouldn't dare call Something in the Way She Moves from the White Album sappy or sentimental. I mean, that is one of the greatest love songs ever put to tape. I mean, it's an extraordinary piece of music. But the point still stands. The contrast in the sensibilities that the Beatles and the Rolling Stones respectively embodied with these songs is stark. Now, there's, because of the song's nature, as you just heard, a lot of condemnation of this piece has arisen. And as you can imagine, particularly in more recent years, in the wake of the Me Too movement, it's songs like these that get revisited and castigated with a lot of vitriol, and there's plenty of validity to that sentiment. It's not wrong. I understand. On the surface, that's the whole story, right? But as we'll see, I wonder if we can dig a little deeper, a little beneath that, and possibly see what's really going on, okay? But let's get to some of those condemnations. There's a story by Inside Hook called Revisiting the 10 Most Controversial Rolling Stones Songs. And they say this about Under My Thumb. Under My Thumb is a horrifyingly sexist celebration of controlling and breaking down the will of a woman so that she talks when she's spoken to, and goes along with the narrator's every demand. It likens her to a pet, a Siamese cat, a squirming dog, and it includes infuriating double standards like her eyes are kept just to herself. I can still look at someone else. Kim Carnes, who does a great song called Betty Davis Eyes. I'll link to the song in the description of this video. Kim Carnes this woman has been covering Under My Thumb for more than the past 40 years. she started doing killer covers live of Under My Thumb as long ago, I believe, as around 1981 or so. Okay, and she kills it. She changes the pronoun from girl to boy. Okay, and as recently as 2015, finally put down a studio recording of the song. To my knowledge, she hadn't released a studio recording of the song, even though she'd been covering for almost half a century. Okay, I found this review of a Kim Carnes song from around 1981 at an LA venue from the New York Times, and it says this: with her sweet husky voice, blonde good looks, and effervescent stage presence, Kim Carnes, who appeared at the Savoy on Monday and last night, could hardly be a more fitting representative of the shifting sounds and attitudes of mainstream Los Angeles pop. The recent success of Betty Davis' Eyes signaled a change in the sound of Los Angeles pop away from traditionally mellow harmonies toward a more brittle, new wave influenced style. So you see, this is early 80s, new wave is breaking out, okay? Miss Carnes opened her set on Monday with a raunchy version of the Rolling Stones' misogynistic anthem, Under My Thumb. So, misogynistic anthem, we understand. We've packaged this song in its little box, and that's all there is to say or think about it, right? There's another outlet called Diffuser that says this about Under My Thumb. Under My Thumb is without a doubt the Stones' most sexist song. The little xylophone, shh, it's a marimba. There's a difference. Accompaniment is the sonic representation of Mick Jagger tiptoeing around the subject and then shocking the listener by just laying it straight out on the table. This chick thought she was going to get the best of him, and now he's got her trained to the point of submission. Whether he means sexually or socially is unclear, but the song is chock full of language one might use to describe a dog, not a human being. It's enough to make you squirm. But Mick Jagger told Rolling Stone in 1995 that it was a joke. And we could say, oh, that's easy to say. Of course, now he's saying it's a joke 30 years later, right? Maybe it is easy for him to say that. Maybe put on the spot now. I mean, he has said that about other songs. Well, we were just joking. He said this to Rolling Stone in 1995. It's a bit of a joke number, really, he told Rolling Stone at the time. It's not really an anti-feminist song any more than any of the others. It's a caricature, and it's in reply to a girl who is a very pushy woman. All right. A caricature, a character. I mean, ask Ray Davies of the Kinks about writing songs in character. He was the king of it. There was a lot of that going on back then, you know? So is it a joking song in a character? Listen, you know, there's a wonderful interview that someone, I got to do a video about this too, does with Syd Barrett's sister not too long ago, I think within recent months. And you know, Syd Barrett's sister ended up being Syd Barrett's caretaker after he loses his marbles, fries himself on acid, drops out of Pink Floyd, and drops out of sight, right? After founding the band. And she says Syd was joking. All these he invents, you know, in part, psychedelic, you know, lyricism with his songs like, you know, Careful with That Axe Eugene and See Emily Play and Jug Band Blues from their, you know, the album with Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun on it. She goes, no, people took him too seriously. He was a clown growing up. He was joking. He was a serious artist visually. He painted. He loved the visual arts. But as a songwriter, he wasn't serious. You know, he gets crowned with the mantle of one of the innovators of psychedelic rock or whatever. But you know, this is his own sister saying that. I mean, who's going to be presumptuous enough to say, "Well, I know better. I wasn't related to that. I didn't grow up with him, but I know he was serious about, you know, being this psychedelic artist." He was just having fun. Now, is Jagger having fun in a way that some could deem ugly? Of course, and that's totally valid. I totally understand that. I'm not disputing that for a second. I get that. But you know, Mick Jagger. He's a rock star, sure, but you know what he is even more than that in my view? A businessman. Mick Jagger understood how to ruffle feathers. He understood the value in doing so. Pissing people off was profitable, okay? And at that time, in an era compared to now as relatively prim as the 1960s, cutting songs in the voice of Satan, writing albums, the title of which suggests that they were told to record this record by the devil, writing songs about dominating your daughter in Under My Thumb. that was going to get some reaction. And guess what happens? The controversy generates record sales, right? Word of mouth ignites these bad, dark, satanic Rolling Stones, and stay away from my daughter, dude. I don't want any of that in my family, right? Mick knew what he was doing, okay? It could have been a joke. It could have been a really cynical ploy for record sales, for attention. You grab attention any way you can. When you're just trying to make it in 1966, the Stones are just getting their thing off the ground. They're grasping at anything to be noticed, okay? And Under My Thumb, as we see, the reaction is reverberating many decades later, did just that, for better or worse. Say what you will of perhaps the cynicism behind such a move, right? But as I said, listen, many women have covered this song. Why is that if it's a misogynistic anthem? You know, changing the pronoun from girl to boy. Kim Carnes, Susanna Hoffs of the Bangles, just released a cover of this song, I think back in April this year. Shamika Copeland, Ellie Jackson, who goes by the stage name LaRue, Anna Kelly, does a beautiful bossa nova cover of the song. Okay, contrast that vibe with the lyrics. Okay, now here's the question: are all of these just revenge covers? You know, recorded as an FU to the Rolling Stones? Maybe, you know, maybe that's all there is to it. But I got another question for you. You know, what if these women, and what if the women who hear these covers found something, you know, liberating in the idea of approaching the song from the standpoint of a woman reclaiming her power over a man? Is it impossible that this song provided that kind of a platform for so many women? Is it impossible that that might be the reason why so many covers of this song have been done by female artists? What woman hasn't been treated like an a-hole by a guy who had neither the decency nor the humility, you know, or self-awareness or vulnerability to engage with her from the standpoint of an equal? And who could blame that woman for either fantasizing or bringing about in real life of actually bringing about that kind of a power dynamic shift in her relationship with that man? You know, if she doesn't just leave him outright, which she probably should. Okay. You know, what relationship isn't a power dynamic? You think yours isn't? You think you're special? You think you're different? And not in crude, overt ways like Under My Thumb, but even in the subtlest of ways, we're jockeying for power in our relationships. You don't think so? Get back to me after your husband or wife cheats on you and tell me how powerful you feel in the aftermath of being trashed like that. Tell me there isn't something narcotic about a song like Under My Thumb in the aftermath of an experience like that. Having your dignity removed, having your self-respect annihilated by this action. And you hear a song like Under My Thumb and it's not going to speak to you? There's nothing appealing about that? Is there nothing simply and normally human about some of the sentiments in this song? Be it the original or covers by female artists in which the pronoun is changed from male to female. You know, so when Kim Carnes was going to clubs and kicking the song in the ass with sneering, teeth-gritted, spitting mad covers, versions of this song with a killer band that is ripping it to pieces. I mean, I'll show you the video. There's a wonderful video of her in again, very early 80s doing Under My Thumb, and she is pissed. Is that just about Mick Jagger? Is she just lifting her finger to Mick? Or has Kim Carnes been treated the way that song depicts by far too many men? And is this song giving her a license to get her revenge on them merely with the tweak of a pronoun? Had this song not existed, one wonders if she might have found as healing an outlet for those frustrations as the song provided her. You know, so there's an innocence to that urge to declare oneself powerful in the way these women do by covering this song. It's not always about this is misogyny and that is misogyny and this band needs to be canceled, that band needs to be canceled. There's something perfectly human, perfectly common, perfectly normal to the emotions expressed in this song. And many women have tapped into that as they've covered it over the years. And I think perhaps the most thoughtful thing I have seen ever written about Under My Thumb was written by a woman, Michiko Kakutani, who was for 38 years the New York Times book critic, but apparently went on assignment in 1994 to see the Stones play a giant stadium on the tour on which I saw the Stones live in 1994 on their Voodoo Lounge tour. Okay? I saw them at the Oakland Coliseum on that tour. I love Voodoo Lounge. Love is Strong, one of my favorite Stones songs. Killer single. So good. Okay. And there's other great stuff. You can watch my review of the Rolling Stones' new record, Hackney Diamonds, from October, and I go over all the latter-day Stones albums and talk about them. But Michiko Kakutani says this about the Stones and their troubled legacy as writers of songs like Under My Thumb. She says, when it came to subjects of love and sex, listen closely now, this is really thoughtful stuff, okay? The Stones were tough. Unlike the Beatles, exactly. There's that important contrast with their prime competitors in the era, right? Mr. Jagger and Mr. Richards would never have suggested that all you need is love. Exactly. Their view of relationships was always more complicated, more ambivalent, more realistic. They liked to paint, if not in black, then at least in more troubled colors. What wonderful writing, Michiko. Than the pretty pastels traditionally used for love songs. Indeed, one of the band's specialties has been songs that explicitly celebrate the carnal pleasures of sex or anatomize the crude power games that can accompany romance. Thank you. This doesn't happen? What Under My Thumb's talking about is foreign? Give me a break. Let me read that language again. The crude power games that can accompany romance. I rest my case. Come on, who hasn't experienced that? You've been there. Under My Thumb, she continues, Mr. Jagger sings in the band's 1966 song, The girl who once had me down under my thumb, the girl who once pushed me around, the change has come, she's under my thumb. While such lyrics have been denounced by feminists as evidence of the Stones' misogyny, they actually have less to do with willful sexism than with the author's refusal to sentimentalize relationships, their awareness of the hidden Freudian maneuvers that often inform human behavior. If women have been described in their songs as dogs who have had their day, well, men too have been characterized in Stones' lyrics as randy, conniving monkeys and goats. Not only is the use of animal imagery a traditional one, remember Little Red Rooster? I talk about that on my video about the Brian Jones documentary. It is also a convenient shorthand for the primal impulses that endure beneath the polite veneer of civilization. Okay. Nor is the Stones' work dominated by swaggering tunes about men on the prowl. There are just as many songs about men trying to get their women back, Beast of Burden, or pleading for commitment, Mixed Emotions. And while more attention is often paid to the band's driving hard rock numbers, some of the Stones' most powerful and moving songs remain their ballads, tenderly romantic ballads like Wild Horses. Oh, what a song. Wow. That is one of my favorites. If you're not familiar with Wild Horses, if you're just coming to the Stones, cue that one up, man. What a beautiful song. And No Expectations from the Some Girls record in 1978. Great little rock record. Which depicts the feelings of loss and longing that love can inspire. Okay? There's a reason the woman wrote for the New York Times for the better part of 40 years. And you just heard it. That's brilliant writing. That is incisive, thoughtful exploration of a song that perhaps too often is easily categorized and dismissed. Okay? She didn't do that. She thought about it. And that's some interesting stuff. There's a lot more, it seems to me, beyond merely the surface of a song like Under My Thumb. Okay? But on the other side of that coin, here too is an equally valid take. Who am I to judge how someone experiences this song? I would never do that. And here's a case in point. There's a San Francisco performer named Jules Indelicato, okay, and she was part of a project called Romantic Songs of the Patriarchy, which took place in the Mission District of San Francisco in the Women's Building, a provider of health, social, and legal services to women. This is a story that appeared in Slate some years ago. It was by an Icelandic artist, and it worked like this. Female musicians were positioned throughout the building on 3 consecutive days, and each one of them was assigned to sing one song that might sound romantic, but which actually is pretty misogynistic, as this story puts it. The singers who took part in the project didn't cover their song just once. In fact, they performed the same song over and over and over again for 3 days, basically on a loop. So visitors to the building would climb a set of stairs or around a corner and hear another song. About 20 female and non-binary singers took part in the marathon performance. Here's what Jules Indelicato said herself about the experience. We were each given songs. The songs were not our choice. I got Under My Thumb by the Rolling Stones. My whole demeanor when performing the song was very full of myself and suave and proud that I had tamed this wild beast. Also a valid take on the song, particularly from a female perspective. The difference in the clothes she wears, it's down to me, the change has come, she's under my thumb, and at the end of the song there's this gigantic release that becomes greater and greater with every repetition, and then a breath, and you start again. You stop seeing it in the lens of time, and it becomes more of a sculpture or a painting. In the first minute, people would come in and they'd realize what song I'm singing, and excitement would overcome their faces, and they'd be like, oh, honey, she's doing the Rolling Stones, listen. By the end of the first chorus, I would see the smile kind of leave, and I'd see them start to fidget, and I'd see their eyes kind of searching to lock onto mine. There was this one very emotional turn where I had really, really gotten into it and really started to feel like I was that person in this song. That toxic, powerful, snide man with no shame. And I was singing my heart out, very subdued, but very intense. And I look up, and this woman is crouched in the corner, clutching her heart and clutching her mouth with her other hand and shaking her head and sobbing. And I look up with a sneer and a smile on my face, right as I say, she's under my thumb. And at that moment, my throat caught up in my chest and my eyes started welling up, and I look at her. And she looks at me. And I realize that some of this is kind of seeping into my body. Some of this pride and some of this like snarky toxicity. I just felt so gross. And I look at her on the ground and I see how much she's going through. And then I look up and I realize there's a little girl in the room and she's watching this whole interaction and she's been there for the whole song. I don't see her parents around anywhere. And then I think about her and I think about all of the songs that she's heard today and how she's growing up being shaped by the same stuff, and it kind of just made me really overwhelmed at how deeply hurt we are by pop culture. And so I wanted to stand up right then and there and just leave. But I sat back down and I took a breath. And I started the song again, and again, and again. That's some painful stuff. And that, too, is a valid take on this song. The point here is not that one take or another is more correct. It's that it's okay for there to be a variety of reactions and takes on a song that, again, more often than not, is just dismissed as misogynistic. A misogynistic anthem, as that New York Times piece puts it. Now, I've mentioned there are a lot of covers of this song. If you're interested in, if you like the song and you haven't heard many covers of it, if you're just coming to the song now, there's a band called Street Heart. They have this sort of post-punk cover from 1979 that earned a Juno Award nomination for Single of the Year as well as Recording Engineer of the Year. There's Susanna Hoffs, as I mentioned. Here's what she said about having covered the song, okay? I've listened to that song on repeat since it came out in the mid-1960s. Susanna Hoffs of the Bangles, okay, does plenty of solo stuff now. She had a series of covers albums she did with Matthew Sweet. Each album would cover a specific decade, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. So this is totally in her wheelhouse to cover Under My Thumb. And it's a beautiful, adorable, really fun cover, by the way. She said, I had an epiphany when I really thought about what the song is about, and it ignited this idea to do my own spin on it, to change the gender, and see how it felt. But Susanna, Kim Carnes had you beat in that regard by more than 40 years, okay? That doesn't detract from the fun you can have with that idea, or but she was doing this a while back, all right? What if the roles were reversed, Susanna is saying, and the boy is under her thumb? It was exhilarating to give it a C. A liberating platform that this song provides women with the mere tweak of a pronoun. What if the roles were reversed and the boy is under her thumb? It was exhilarating to give it a new spin, to flip it on its head or on its ass. It's a sassy, irreverent song, so it was extremely pleasurable to turn the tables down. So she'll sing lines like, under my thumb is a boy who once had me down. Under my thumb, the boy who once pushed me around. Under my thumb is a Siamese cat of a toy. And what do you hear at that moment in Susanna Hoff's cover, by the way? A meow. A squealing meow in the background. It's great. It's an adorable cover, like I said. It's a beautiful one musically, too. Susanna Hoffs is the real deal. Check out that cover. She's great. There's a band called The Hounds that has kind of a ridiculous late 1970s, heavy metal take. They put out in 1979 on a record called Putting on the Dog. It's okay. I don't think it's great, but it has you know, kind of the edginess of that late 70s heavy metal and post-punk scene in it, but kind of in a derivative way. There's this really weird cover of Under My Thumb by a band called Ministry and Co-Conspirators. They serve up this cover that sounds like an 80s power ballad that really wants to be a death metal song, if you can wrap your mind around that. That's what it sounds like. It's a bizarre but memorable experience. Again, Ministry and Co-Conspirators. I'll try to find all these links and link to them in the description. LaRue, as I said, Ellie Jackson. She's got, you know, this synth pop throwback thing that she does. And this song is absolutely drenched in all those leanings. Okay, the vibe here brings to mind, for me, that of like 80s freestyle hits such as, you know, Let the Music Play by Shannon, or I Can't Wait by New Shoes, or Silent Morning, you know, that kind of stuff. Really nice. That's a top-notch cover, I would say. Surprising, coming at it from a totally different aesthetical approach, okay? Anna Kelly, the Bossa Nova cover. Anna Kelly is interesting. She does Bossa Nova covers of other tracks like November Rain by Guns N' Roses, Show Me the Way, Peter Frampton song. Beautiful. Weird, given the subject matter, but she makes it work. Michiko Copeland, a Harlem-born blues singer with a killer voice and a really commanding stage presence, does this smoky, gritty, down-home blues and soul fusion type cover of the song, and it's got this raw, minimalist groove to it. Very highly recommended. Michiko Copeland does her cover. Now, Kim Carnes, she's got this cover. Now, she was doing it live in the early 80s, but she didn't release her own recording of Under My Thumb until 2015, believe it or not, okay? When she contributes a cover to a fascinating concept album called 80s Recovered. I highly recommend getting your hands on this or pulling it up on Spotify. It's described as one of the most original music concepts of the 21st century, featuring some of the most popular performers of the decade. Belinda Carlisle, Kim Carnes, performing classic pop songs, among many other artists, arranged and produced with the popular 80s sound. Kim Carnes has so much fun with this song. She changes squirming dog to squirming worm. A squirming worm! And she's got that raspy, husky voice. And it's perfect. And the deliberately, self-consciously 80s vibe that they lay over it is really well done. Really well executed. Gotta hear her cover. Kim, you kick ass. It's great. Oddly enough, this misogynistic anthem has several baby lullaby renditions, if you can believe it. Yes, school those toddlers in the vibe of misogyny, right? But there's this album called Babies Go Rolling Stones, released in 2005. It's by Sweet Little Band. They do this series of compilations of famous bands covering entire albums worth of famous band stuff. Like they've done Babies Go Beatles, Babies Go Coldplay, Babies Go Bob Marley, Queen for Babies, all that stuff. Then there's Rockabye Baby in 2007. Another lullaby rendition of Under My Thumb can be found. They've done lullaby renditions of famous artists, including everything from Elton John to The Weeknd, and like Outkast and stuff. So that's cool. One of these, I think it's them. They do like a Metallica lullaby renditions of Metallica. Other covers, there's this band I'm not familiar with called Electric Mud. That's the title of one of my favorite Muddy Waters records, a much maligned critically Muddy Waters record, but I love it. But this band calls themselves Electric Mud. It's a blistering, looser, jangly version of the track that sounds like a cross between the Byrds and the Rolling Stones. The jangly vibe of the Byrds and the gritty, toothsome rock and roll thing that the Stones have going on. It's a really fun, rollicking cover of the song by Electric Mud. Pull that up on Spotify or wherever you stream your music and see what you think about that. There's a nice little cover by a guy named Steve Cipriano. I don't know who this dude is, but it's like this mellower lo-fi kind of garage rock cover. It's fun to hear. It's not necessarily the most professionally produced piece of music. He kind of sounds like John Prine a bit, but it's nice. It's a real, very garage rocky. And I would recommend that too. So here's the thing. With Under My Thumb, on the surface, is it a misogynistic anthem? Sure. But when you dig a little deeper, see what you find there. Dig under that surface. Explore it for yourself. Let me know in the comments what you find if you take that dive into Under My Thumb. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you about it.